Scared of the lathe? So was I, until this changed everything. Today, we're starting from zero. I'll show you every step of turning your very first wooden bowl, even if you've never touched a wood lathe before. This is part one of a two-part series. In this video, we'll cover everything that sets you up for success, from choosing the right wood blank to mounting it safely and making those first cuts. In part two, we'll shape, sand, and finish into something you'll be proud to use or give as a gift. By the end of part one, you'll have the bowl roughed out and ready for final shaping. And the best part? You'll see just how fun and safe wood turning can be once you know the basics. Grab your face shield and let's get started. In just a few minutes, you'll be making shavings fly and you'll be ready for the real magic in part two. Before we can go to the lathe and start making a bowl, we have to start out with the raw material or some wood or a bowl blank. So where do we get these bowl blanks? I'm going to show you a couple of my favorite methods, and we'll talk about a few others also. My favorite is using a log section, like this big chunk right here. Another option that I use a lot of times is basically just taking a couple of boards and gluing them together. I've laminated basically 2x10s, a section of a 2x10. This is just southern yellow pine construction lumber that I got at the big box store, right? Laminated, glued it together, and now I've created a bowl blank. So this is an option as well. You don't have to use construction lumber. Of course, we could laminate any kind of lumber, dimensional lumber or rough sawn lumber that we might have either on hand or that we can buy. Sometimes we can find sources at specialty woodworking suppliers or online that will sell bowl blanks. So that's where this one came from. Now that we have our bowl blank, what's the next step in the process so that we can get our bowl blank mounted to the lathe and start turning? The first thing I want to do is identify which face I want to be the rim or the opening of the bowl. On a log section, it's pretty obvious. It's this surface right here. We really aren't going to want to make this the diameter of the bowl and that the bottom. Most of the time with a log section, it's just going to be this face right here. But if we're working with a bowl blank, whether we're laminating it together like this pine blank that I have, we can really choose either face. Now, ideally at this point, I want a pretty flat surface, but there might be reasons that we want to choose one or the other. In this case, I've got a knot hole over here on this side that I would have to deal with if I make that rim. I have a knot hole here, but if this is the interior of the bowl, I could probably turn most of this away. So in this case, I'm going to make this the bottom and this our opening, our diameter, our rim. There's really two different ways that we're going to mount this to our lathe. First, and probably the most secure option, is using a faceplate where we can mount the faceplate right here. The other option is using a wormwood screw. So the wormwood screw in this case works with my scroll chuck. So my scroll chuck will hold that in place just like this. But let's go ahead and show you how we install these two work holding methods. We're going to start with the faceplate. All I want to do is get an approximate center. So I'm just going to mark that out here really quickly. I'm a little bit over 10 inches in this direction, so I'm just going to mark it about 5 1/8. It's pretty close to that. And I'm about right at 10 there. So we're going to mark here at 5. So I'm just going to kind of take my marks inside here and I'm just going to line those up the best I can. Just kind of eyeballing it. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'm going to use a drill bit to drill a pilot hole. I just use regular wood screws. The one thing I would caution against, you do not want to use drywall screws. drywall screws tend to be pretty brittle and they will break right off. Some of the heavier duty construction screws should be fine as well. I've had decent luck with wood screws. And in this case, I'm not worried about the length of my wood screws. So I'm not worried about how long they are. This bowl blank is ready to be mounted to the lathe. We've got our faceplate on here. We're nice and secure. So we'll take this over to the lathe and we will be ready for that one. All right, before we leave the workbench though, let's put the wormwood screw on this blank. Just like we did with the faceplate, all I want to do is kind of find that approximate center. In this case, I'm going to just put a quick punch right there on that point to keep my drill bit from wandering. And then for this wormwood screw, a 5/16 inch drill bit is what works best. Actually, on this drill bit, I've actually got a mark from doing this before on the bit, so I kind of have an idea of how deep to go. And just like with our other blank, I'm not too worried. I have plenty of depth here, so I'm not too worried about the depth of this hole creating a problem as we're turning. So our next step, now that we have that drilled out, is we will go over to the lathe, mount the scroll chuck, get the wormwood screw held securely in the scroll chuck, and then we'll just kind of wind the blank onto the scroll chuck. To mount our turning blank with our faceplate, it's just as simple as screwing the faceplate onto our headstock. Got that on there, and then we'll set the set screw just to make sure that doesn't spin off. Shouldn't be a problem. But to mount our bowl blank using the wormwood screw, the first thing we're going to do is put the scroll chuck on the lathe. So we're just going to turn that on there. Just like we did with the faceplate, we're going to get the set screw in place. And then I'm going to put the wormwood screw in here. We'll just get it held in place. As we put the wormwood screw into our hole, I want to snug it up against the face, and I want to make sure I've got good contact all the way around. Having the larger surface area here with these jumbo jaws made it up against the face of our bowl reduces the likelihood that we create too much leverage out here on the edge as we're turning, where we strip out that wormwood screw. Now that we've got our bowl blanks mounted to the lathe, we're ready to start rough turning. We're going to start by rough turning our bowls. One of the things that we're going to focus on a lot in this lesson is the bottom of our bowl. We're going to talk about the foot of a bowl. We're going to talk about tenons. We're going to do most of our work at this stage with our 1/2-inch bowl gouge. I've already got it sharpened at the grinder, so we're in good shape, ready to go. So let's go ahead and kick on the lathe and see if we can make some progress.
My objective here at this point is just to try to get our bowl blank round. I've got this speed on the lathe at about 325 RPMs or so. So what I'd like to do is get some of this material removed, especially the corners as we work around toward the bottom. Once we've got that removed, then we can increase the speed on the lathe where we can cut much more efficiently. We've jumped ahead a little bit here on our rough turning. Now we're not only working on getting our diameter round, but we're trying to work these corners off and get to the bottom of our bowl. Even though we're still making roughing cuts here, I'm relying on the bevel, using a bevel supported cut kind of sweeping around this corner. This gives me the opportunity to take off a fair amount of material
without worrying too much about getting a nasty catch. We've made a lot more progress at this point on our roughing, and we've kicked up the speed on the lathe to about 650 RPMs. Now we can cut much more efficiently and get the rest of this material off much faster. My goal is to help you master bowl turning. Unlike many YouTube videos, including mine, that skip some details, our upcoming online course dives deep into every aspect. You'll get hours of video instruction and an illustrated guide to build and refine your skills. Comment bowls to join our waiting list and get 20% off when the course launches. Now that we've got a rough bowl shape here on the outside of our blank, it's time to transition and work on the bottom of our bowl.
I'm going to start by just flattening off the bottom. I'm going to continue with these kind of bevel supported cuts.
Once we've got a nice flat spot down here on the bottom of the bowl, the next thing to do is to start marking and measuring for our tenon.
I want a 3-inch tenon on this bowl. We're going to make it a little bit larger than that for our chuck jaws. So I'm just going to measure over about 1.5 inches, a little over that, maybe 1 5/8 inches, and then I'm just going to connect that line. So now I know more or less that's where I want my tenon to be. We'll make that tenon about 1/4 to 5/16 of an inch thick. We'll put a little dovetail on it, and we'll show you that, how we do that. And then from there, we've got the bottom of our bowl more or less established. We'll use that material for the tenon later in later steps. That'll become the foot on the bowl. So we'll still utilize most of that material. And so we're going to remove basically from the tenon, we're going to create that tenon, and then we'll work off the rest of this flat spot and get this bowl round. So just working right into our line. The chuck jaws that I use have a slight dovetail shape to them. So what I want to do here is kind of match that shape. I like to use my skew chisel more or less like a scraper. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to basically keep this outside diameter intact, and we're going to use the skew chisel. And we're just going to angle this in a little bit, which will give our chuck jaws just a little bit more grip. Now we're ready to turn off this corner and get our bowl shape, start refining the shape on the outside of our bowl. And I'm using scraping cuts here.
Our goal at this point is to shape the exterior of our bowl. What I want to do here is work from the bottom where I've got my tenon, or on this bowl blank actually a recess. That's going to be the bottom foot of my bowl. And so I want to basically connect that bottom foot to the rim and create a nice sweeping natural shaped arc or curve.
Okay, we've got a lot of that corner worked off, and now we're going to start connecting this edge. We still have quite a bit of material to remove, but what I want to do, my goal here is going to be to start, and you can see it out here on this edge a little bit, is to start getting that scraping coming around, and then I'm going to turn the corner, and we're just going to do basically a push or pull cut, depending on which hands you use. But we're going to come through here and we're going to start rolling off this side. So I'm just still scraping, and then once I get over here,
I'm going to turn the corner. And once I've turned that corner and I've got a little material there, now I can really remove quite a bit. And we're just going to, got our bevel support going. Now in this case, I'm not trying to go all the way out to the rim just yet because one, I'm going to blow out this edge. That's one reason. That's the biggest reason. But I also am not looking to reduce that diameter enormously. I'm just going to keep working here. I need to get down. I've still got a little bit of material to remove. All I need is I just need a little indentation, and then I can pretty easily get my bevel engaged. And we can get a bunch of material coming off. We still have a bulge here. I don't really have the shape where I need it yet, right? So we still have to work on that shape. The other thing I'm going to do is kind of flip out here to this edge. I've got a line marked out here on the outside diameter of roughly where I want it to be at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and cut in at that point just a little bit so I know where I'm going. That'll give me an idea how much material I've got left to remove. Because I cut from the outside of my rim in, I'm not going to blow out this edge, and I'll be able to just kind of smooth this out. At least that is the goal.
After making one more pass to get the outside of our bowl shaped like we wanted it, I'm just using my bowl gouge here as a scraper, kind of refining that outside surface. The outside of our bowl is pretty much finished at this point. So in lesson 2, we'll pick up from this point. We'll reverse mount the bowl using our tenon in our scroll chuck, and we'll start hollowing and wrapping up our bowl turn. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in lesson 2.